I thought we could start with where are you from and where were you raised? We all know sort of from your bios what universities you went to and where you studied, but where did you really grow up as a kid?
If you could believe our bios, but...
Am I going first? All right, I'm going first. I was born in New Orleans, and my dad was in grad school there. And soon after we moved to West Texas, out to Plainview, and my mom made my dad promise they wouldn't stay there forever. And she became president of the Local Now chapter. And then we moved back to New Orleans, and my sister was born there. We lived in Montgomery, Alabama very briefly, and then we moved to Wingate, North Carolina, which is 30 miles southeast of Charlotte. And I started first grade there, and did the majority of my growing up, at least what I remember, right there in Wingate.
I was born in outside of Pittsburgh, actually, but that didn't last long. And pretty much after that was in Vermont. That's where I grew up, and the rest was just travel for school and various work things, and I ended up working quite close to Plainview. I can talk for a long time about the names of towns in West Texas, actually. There's Level Land, Shallow Water, Plainview, Brownfield, and the list goes on. But you begin to get the pattern there.
And I was born in Evansville, Indiana. And a couple months old, my folks moved to Hickory, North Carolina. So I grew up in North Carolina and lived there until I was during my freshman year in high school. My family moved to Indianapolis, back to Indiana, and then of course the school path. The buyers, you've seen what that is.
All right. Next one. How many members of your family were musical, either professionally or vocationally, and how do you think that affected your musical career?
Okay, so, all right, well, in the same order. All right, let's see. Immediate family. My father, well, both my parents studied sort of the required piano as teenagers, and all that. My mother was she was a flute player in the marching band or something. It kind of went along with being a majorette or something. That was her. And my dad studied piano and got kind of serious about it, and also studied voice through college. And I remember as a kid, when Dad couldn't sleep or he was, stressed out about grading papers or something, late at night I'd hear him practicing Rachmaninoff in the house, and the big hands one. He has very big hands, and he'd do dun, dun, dun. I'd hear those chords, and I didn't really know at that age what I was hearing come up the stairs, but that's what it was. My little sister studied violin really seriously along with me up until about 14 when she decided she was done. And she does it now kind of for fun. She's been playing along with a bluegrass band for a bit. Other than that, really, none of my grandparents were musicians in any way, aunts, uncles, all that kind of thing. I've got a couple cousins that have gone through music school and the voice area. But that's it. So not a big musical legacy at all for my family.
Aaron, let me go next. I'm the youngest of my siblings, and my sisters, my brother, they mostly played piano, or there was a guitar that got passed down. So there was always music. Now, my parents, neither one, I don't think they ever studied music at all when they were growing up. Yeah, I think there was music in the house, so I was playing some sort. And a next door neighbor, actually, who was like an older sister, played piano when I first got lessons. She showed me things on the piano that got me interested. So in first grade, I started studying piano. String program in the school system. In fifth grade is where my string playing began. So.
Very cool.
Okay, so on my mother's side, actually, I mean, on my mother's side, there aren't any professional musicians, and there wasn't any history of taking lessons. And she was one of 7, and she was the oldest, and they really couldn't afford lessons, and she always wanted to play the cello. And so, when she had the chance to meet, she had the chance to meet Elsa Hilger, who was a very well-known cellist in the Philadelphia area and nationwide to some extent, who played in the Philadelphia Orchestra. And the condition was that she had to go out on a date with this guy, who was her son. And anyway, so that's how my parents met. And therefore, I got connected to this. Well, I mean, I guess that produced me. So the other side of the family is very musical. It goes back sort of on several tiers. But my grandfather's, my father's father's father was a cellist and concert pianist, and he was when they formed the Philadelphia Orchestra, he was second chair cello. His father was an organist, and his father's father, and as far back as we really have cared to trace it, were musicians, professional musicians. And my grandfather was a very good amateur cellist. He played, there was sort of a circle in Philadelphia of all the spouses of the famous musicians who played together. And so he was one of those. Then my grandmother and actually all of her sisters, so she had many, many siblings, most of whom didn't make it because they were not well off. But she and her 2 sisters were a trio of prodigies, and they toured all over Europe and America and had very big careers in the teens. Anyway, so that's, so then she and my grandfather were both cellists and in the Philadelphia Society, and so they met. And so music has really been the primary thing bringing my family together for many years, and I'm just the latest, I guess. The latest model, trying to do something along the lines of what everyone else did. I guess that'll be that's my final answer.
This one is geared more towards, I guess, the performance aspect, but I was wondering if you could talk about your auditioning experience for your first symphony job, and what kind of rep did you use, how many places did you audition, just sort of the story of landing your first symphony job, I
I think that's a good one.
Well, my first symphony, my real first job in a symphony was not with was actually adjunct to my first teaching job at a university. It wasn't something that I had to do, but it seemed nice. And so it was very funny because I'd taken a number of auditions and done horribly. So my first successful audition was actually very nerve-wracking because I already was the cello professor, and if I didn't win this job, it would be very odd. Texas. So anyway, that was terrifying actually, and I don't know, that doesn't really answer your question, but I will say that I know a lot about what not to do. I've fallen into most of the classic mistakes, learning the wrong excerpts. That's a good one. It's easier than you think to do. And you've been working very hard on the same music for maybe a couple months, and to realize after the audition, boy, that was a really weird place for them to ask me, and then to think, oh God, that must have been the wrong piece. I did it with Mendelssohn incidental music to Midsummer Night's Dream. And I think instead of the overture, or vice versa, Anyway, maybe someone else.
I also haven't taken a whole lot of auditions. It's just not the career path that I kind of found myself on. I've taken a few, The first one was Ann Arbor Symphony when I was in school in Michigan. And the biggest thing I remember is that I had a really high fever. And I had to go take this audition. And I think I was playing Tchaikovsky Concerto. I don't remember much else, but I got in. And so I was happy. That's fine. I may have actually, listened to, in some fashion, more auditions than I'm quite sure, actually. I mean, in professional level, because I won this job in the Pro Musica Chamber Orchestra, heavens, 8 or 9 years ago now. Also, one of those things where, I was already playing as a sub, and I had all these friends in the orchestra, and I'm the local violin professor, and if I don't go in there and just really knock it out of the park, this is going to be horribly embarrassing. But I won the job, and I've sat on audition committees for them now once or twice a year since then. And so I've gotten to watch a lot of auditions and hear a lot of auditions, far more than I've ever played. There were a few other incidental ones in there, but I don't remember all of them.
Yeah, similar for me, I think. I've had the opportunity to, in work that I've done overseas and in the States, to listen to lots of orchestra auditions for everything from the National Youth Orchestra of Spain to one of the regional orchestras in the north of Spain. I don't think I've ever, I haven't played any auditions. All the playing I've done has been by appointment. So, for better or for worse.